Brother Fiesta, Rich Fiesta, Executive Director of the Alliance for Retired Americans. And Rich, it's all yours.
Great, thanks, Tony. And I'll be like Bill, kind of brief. I do have a very few slides. I think that Dave can put up. So while he's doing that, I'm glad to be back, seeing so many friends I've worked with for either at the Alliance or when I was on Capitol Hill in the House and Senate for a number of years. It's just great to see everybody again. I always like to come to these because I get to hear what Mike Noonan talks about my pension too, as an active member and as someone who signs a big pension check into the fund every month as well. So I will say, just in that regarding, it was on a stakeholders call yesterday of the PBGC that they periodically have. And of course, their leadership will change because the current executive director is the brother-in-law of Secretary Elaine Chao, and we know who she's married to. But nonetheless, they have some very good actuary and numbers people over there. And at least in the multi-employer side, the projected liabilities over the next 10 years from their calculations is about $68 billion to the PBGC multi-employer fund, assuming things go bad with the Teamsters Central States and a couple others. And so 68 in potential liability, and they currently have $3 billion in assets from premiums and reserves. So if you take 68 and then minus 3, Congress clearly has to do something. As they figure the insurance fund will run out by 2026. It actually was supposed to be projected to be 2022 to 2023, but what Congress did helping the mine workers and their pension fund has actually extended that a few years. So going forward, pension legislation, especially in the multi area, is critical. And I know we're going to have a administration that knows about it and will try and do something about it as well. So these Georgia races even become more critical than that. So if you want to know more about us, you can always go to our website, retiredamericans.org. Dave, you can go to the next slide. As you may know, we were formed by the AFL CIO Executive Council in 2001, or late 2000. We're coming up on our 20th year next year. Most of the large participating unions, and as you know, a number of them have their own very vibrant and robust programs for retirees, are with us. We now have state alliances in the states in blue. I really wanted this map to be the electoral college turnout, but it didn't quite end up that way, but we still have a nice big blue map. We were adding states until the pandemic hit. In 19, we added Kansas and Kentucky, and we're working on Tennessee and Alabama, but we'll see what 2021 brings. Regardless, there are union retirees and union retiree individual union clubs in every state as well, and very helpful when we do blast emails and the like, no matter where they are as well. If we can go to the next slide, I'll just talk a little bit about the election this year. We're putting together our annual activities report of what we do. Should be printed, or at least ready for distribution in about a week or two, so I could send it to Tony to get around basically what we did this year. Seniors this year, people over 65, were a group because of the pandemic that were much more in play politically than they have been in the last number of cycles. The seniors over 65 have tended to vote Republican nationally and have done so since Al Gore was the last Democrat to actually win a majority of 65 plus voters. But this year, because of Trump's handling of COVID, there was a lot of room for us, both at the Alliance and at large, to persuade seniors to move away from Trump and towards Biden. And that did happen throughout the year. If we can go to the next slide. This is just a percent in the 12 important swing states of the registered voters who are 65, as all of us, I'm a baby boomer too, aging. And if you actually do turnout, You can always add 8 to 10 points because seniors are, as we know, the most loyal in terms of voting. And we're already thinking about 2022, as Bill was talking about, a very, very thin margin in the US House and 30 plus governors races up. And with seniors going to be, as always, especially in off years, an oversized proportion of the election. It's not too soon to talk about that. And we're already thinking about that as well. If we can go to the next slide. Here's how the senior vote turned out in 2020. Good news for all of us here. The AFL every year does an election night union poll of members and how they voted. Union retirees voted for Biden 69 to 30. And that was a 4-point improvement from 2016 when Hillary Clinton got 65% of the union retiree vote. Biden got it at 69. So it's a 39-point margin. And over the last several cycles, union retirees have been voting more for our endorsed candidate than active union members by anywhere from 7 to 9 percentage points. So union retirees is the overall household active, and retirees have helped boost the whole union vote higher for our endorsed candidate as well. I mean, what bothers me or concerns me, I guess, longer time is the active members who are only voted about 58% for Biden this time. They're not going to magically become Democratic or our endorsed candidates voters when they retire in X number of years. So I think longer term, that's something we all need to think about and getting to people more and more in their workplaces as well. Overall, outside all Americans who are over 65, Trump won that by 5 points, 52-47. Again, exit polls are exactly that. They're sort of a snapshot. We'll know better once the secretaries of state release the actual voter files of who voted, and we have the numbers crunchers do better. It looked like this 5% Trump margin was actually better than 8% that he got in 2016. But when you look in some of the key swing states, Arizona, people over 65 voted double digits for Trump 4 years ago, and it was tied or even Biden by 1. So it's a huge swing in Arizona. So we saw it also in Georgia and Michigan, huge swings from 16 to 18. Pennsylvania as well, for example. So in the key states, older voters swung towards Biden, and at least in Arizona and Georgia, I think we're a large part of the win for Biden in those two states as well. But as I mentioned, we will see more as more data becomes available. So let's go to the next slide. Having an election with seniors in a pandemic was a challenge to us, and normally our phone bank and walking and going to meet candidates, going to rallies, speaking at rallies, because elected candidates always like to have happy seniors at their rallies. This is from the April Milwaukee primary in Wisconsin. This went viral around the country as well, and it didn't get much better in a lot of states. And if we go to the next slide, we were very active this year, as you can see on the next slide. Let's see. There we go. So we seniors this year, because of being the most at risk because of COVID, and a number of states have a lot of barriers on voting by mail. We, along with several groups represented by the Perkins Coie law firm, if any of you follow Mark Elias's Twitter, it's constant and it's always telling you what's up. But we sued and used our alliance union retirees as plaintiffs, both organizationally and individually, in these 8 states as well, trying to get, if we can go to the next slide, barriers reduced to allow people to vote and not have their health threatened by exercising the right to vote. Witness signatures. There are 20 states that if you're going to vote by mail, you have to go get another voter to sign the back of your envelope. It's not enough that you sign it and you put your ballot in, and sometimes in a secrecy envelope. You have to go find somebody else to sign it as well that saw you do it. There are several states that actually have two witness requirements, or two witnesses have to do it. North Carolina is one of them, for example. So we challenged that as a barrier. Signature match. There were no standards in a lot of states or anywhere for signature matches. So if you signed up and you're 18 or 21 and now you're 75, your signature may not be the same. And there's a lot of arbitrariness on counting ballots or not, and then giving you the ability to cure it. Huge number of states with issues that your ballot has to be at the Board of Elections by Election Day. But in July, the Postal Service told all 50 states, we're not going to be able to return ballots in the normal first-class business way, mail that we do. So we sued there in a number of states, allowing, if it's postmarked by Election Day. Pennsylvania was one where we were successful, and that went all the way to the Supreme Court. For example, we did in Minnesota, but in several states, we got bad circuit court decisions because Trump has been able to pack these courts, the 7th Circuit in Chicago, the 8th Circuit in Minneapolis, the 5th Circuit in New Orleans, and the 11th Circuit in Atlanta, that had not only in our cases, a whole bunch of cases that we were winning at the district level and then we're losing to these very conservative judges panels. Again, the strains on the Postal Service and state and local election boards, and trying to get prepaid postage, because studies show if there's prepaid postage on your ballot, turnout will go up 2 to 3%. We were able to get that in Pennsylvania, where the state did it on its own, for example, and in large parts of Florida as well. So we were busy in a way last February. We never thought we would be. But we had quite a number of successes, and as a result, millions of people were able to vote more easily and more safely than they had in the past. And in a number of states, these changes will be permanent going into the future. If we can go to the next slide. So just quickly, key takeaways: seniors are voting more Democratic. Our issues like saving the Postal Service and Social Security and Medicare and not privatizing them are favoring Democrats. The senior vote, because there are going to be more seniors at every election, is becoming more critical, and especially looking towards 2022. And then more and more of getting people comfortable, especially older voters who may not have voted by mail. We did a study of our own Alliance retiree list and found that 94% of union retirees in Pennsylvania had never voted by mail before, because the state last year loosened its vote by mail laws, as did Michigan. But of all times, to have it go into effect in 2020 with the pandemic and a postal service that was hostile to delivering the mail. So there's a lot of education on getting people comfortable, knowing what to do if there's a problem, curing their ballots and all. And it's now something that's just going to be going into the future as part of our regular education and election cycles as well. So one more thing going forward. Georgia is next on the next slide. Yep, had it. We're starting to do. We've identified 20,000 union retirees who may need a good GOTV push in Georgia. We're starting retiree-to-retiree phone banks. It's on our website, retiredamericans.org, next week. We're doing a statewide with these retirees telephone town hall with former Georgia Congressman and UN Ambassador Andrew Young on the 14th, obviously a native of Georgia. We're doing even texts, peer-to-peer texting on phones, which more and more older Americans are using and aren't afraid of as well. And we're also in good old-fashioned USPS dropping 2 pieces of mail as well. You know, we, like a lot of people, but retirees in particular, can't be in the union halls making calls or doing walks, but we've upped our skills this year learning Zoom and telephone techniques and texting as well. So hopefully by January 5th, a lot of the short-term work will be successful too. So great to be with you again, and thanks for having me, Tony, and everyone else.
Rich, does anyone have any questions or comments for Rich? So I think the next item will be up. There you go, Gail.
Hi, Rich. Good to see you.
Hi, Gail.
A question about that big swing in Georgia, voters going Democratic. This might be unfair, but do you have any sense at all about how much of that can be translated down ballot to the Senate races, and how much people came out to vote with Trump at the top of the ticket and Biden at the top of the ticket?
Right. Good question for the numbers crunchers. I mean, Georgia, I think you can't underestimate what Stacey Abrams has done over the last 2 years. And Beto O'Rourke was trying to do the same thing in Texas with his leftover money from 2 years ago, with not as good, but still a lot of success in some areas, at least holding the line in the Texas legislature. I mean, clearly with seniors, it was, with Trump, it was the 2 C's, COVID and conduct. His conduct regarding COVID and his conduct in general. And that, I think, moved a lot of at least older voters our way for sure. It looks like the Atlanta suburbs in Georgia, regardless of age, moved as well. But as someone said earlier, I think it was Julie, this is, a turnout. There aren't a lot of Trump and then somebody else voters. Like in North Carolina, there were very few Trump, Cal Cunningham voters. Cunningham lost, Biden lost, Trump won, Tillis won. The only state where there was a strange flip is I'd like to meet Biden, Susan Collins voters in Maine, because apparently there are a lot of them there. But most of this was coming out and voting for the party.
Any other questions, comments for Rich? Brother Fiesta, thanks always. And we look forward to the time when you can join the organization.
Well, if Noonan keeps our pension safe, then it might be.
Absolutely.